You know, it's kind of weird. I always think these finale videos are just going to be me putting everything together, just short and sweet, but they always somehow end up being my longest videos. Anywho, if you remember my answer to a question a few videos ago, in the background of that video, I was doing a bunch of wet sanding and polishing, and well, this is the fruit of all that labor. I'm just wiping all my grubby fingerprints off of it to show you how that turned out. Yeah, that doesn't look too... Wait, what the hell is this? Whatever that was, I'm glad it just easily wiped off. Well, let's get this thing covered in fingerprints again, because we got some work to do. A lot of you have probably already seen me do this before, but for all the newcomers, here's a little trick to get some polishing compound out of all the little body lines. See it right in there? That white crusty stuff? That is the enemy. However, the enemy is easily subdued with just some basic purified water. Yeah, you know the stuff. This right here. It's real easy to do. Just pour it in your airbrush and let it act like a power washer. Once you get everything cleaned out, just sit it down, give it a nice little spin dry. Once the body is dry, we can move on to doing some accent painting, and that always starts with just a little bit of masking. Ugh, no, how can this be? It's always something. You guys remember a few years ago when these refills used to be $1? Yeah, me too. I went to my only local hobby store the other day. That was a Hobbytown, USA. I got 2 cans of paint, this refill, and one of them wider masking tapes. $47. Jesus Christ, people. Guys, I'm telling you, this hobby it's not much of a hobby anymore. It's something I gotta get a side hustle for just to afford. My apologies for that outburst. I haven't been in a good mood lately, and just everything is annoying me. Anywho, we can get that guy put back together. I'm going to detack some of this tape here, then I'm just going to put it in. Or on. Yeah, put it on. And it will take me several attempts. I'm getting kind of tired of messing with this, so I'm just going to jump the video ahead to paint. And we always start off the same. I'm going to do a real light coat around that tape line. My theory I've convinced myself of is that light coat, once it dries, it'll create kind of a seal or a gasket of sorts. That way when we go back in later with the heavier coats, it will not bleed through. And while I got the semi-gloss and the airbrush, might as well paint everything else that gets painted in semi-gloss, including this rear diffuser. And after a few coats of paint, we should have something that looks nice and covered just like this right here. Now while the paint is somewhat still wet, I'm going to peel off all that masking tape. Another theory I've convinced myself of is if the paint is still wet, when you peel up the tape, it'll just cut through it instead of just breaking through dry paint. So it gives a cleaner line, maybe? I'm not really sure. I make up scenarios in my head and I just go along with it. From here though, it is just more masking, painting, so on and so forth. Might as well paint up the photo etch too. All that mesh and that screen gets painted in that same semi-gloss black. Now the thing with photo etch is the paint doesn't really stick to it. It kind of just clings to the surface. So for things like the Scuderia emblem here, I can just easily scrape off that paint to reveal the chrome prancing horse. The downside to all this is, well, it's fragile, so if you handle it a whole lot, the paint will flake off. So the next step is to give that a nice contour to match the round front end of the car. Well, as round as you could get it, I suppose. It'll take just a little bit of finagling to get it where you want it to be, but once you're happy with its location, I'm just going to use some UV resin to kind of lock it in place. Now this UV resin I've had for a while now, about 2 years. It's starting to kind of turn bad on me. At first I thought it was just rust in the applicator tip, but Justin tells me that after a while this stuff will just start to turn yellow. So I might as well use it all up gluing in this photo etch. And I'm sure you guys get the hint here. There was a total of 15 pieces of photo etch on the body alone that I had to glue into place. Basically, every opening that you see gets on photo etch. From there, we're just going to work our way from the front to the back of the car, starting with the headlights. The bezel around the actual headlight itself, I'm going to paint in a titanium silver. And once I'd had plenty of time to dry, I'm going to mask it off and then go around everything else with some flat black. They just need a little bit of time to dry, then I could peel off that chunk of masking tape, and we got ourselves a headlight. Now the headlight itself was chrome plated. I had sanded off all the chrome except for the areas up top. I'm just going to paint over those with some Tamiya clear orange to replicate the blinkers, or the turn indicators, whatever you call them wherever you're from. Installing them, however, well, it was not that fun. There's 3 spots it's got a line to, and I only got 2 hands. You have to somehow get it to a line in the slot at the bottom, but keep it straight so it fits inside the actual headlight bucket thing, while all pressing down at the same time. Once you think you got it where it looks like it might fit, just kind of press it home with a Q-tip. Now from there, the headlight covers, I'm just going to go around the edge with a Sharpie to simulate that black rubber trim that seals them off from the elements. A few little dabs of that white glue will hold them in place just fine. If you got any squeeze out, wipe it off now before it dries. In part 2, you guys saw me drill out and make provisions for the side marker lenses I'd found in the stash. It was essentially me just pressing something to a pre-drilled hole. The problem was it was so small that I could not do it through a viewfinder. We finally made it to the back of the car. There's a whole lot of clear parts back here, so I'm just going to spray it all to save some time. We got both of our tail light lenses, we got the third brake light lens, and then for the European people, we got our red fog lights. Now for the masking on the reverse light, I just used a regular old hole punch. Luckily, it turned out to be exactly the size I needed it to be. Now for these tail lights, the instructions, they're not very clear. Do I install the chrome piece first, then the lens around it? I don't know, but what I figured out that worked is I just stick the chrome piece inside of the tail light and everything will fit just fine. With those guys installed, we could slide in our third brake light. Now this thing did not fit that well. It's probably my fault because I had so many layers of paint and clear, and then the clear red on top of that lens. Eventually though, I got it to slot into place. However, the fog lights on rear diffuser, no problems at all. They just fell right into place. Now believe it or not, but there is not a whole lot of detail under the hood. Just something to paint yellow, 2 things to paint blue, 1 thing to paint silver, and then just a decal. Well, I guess I just installed a decal, so 2 decals. So decal, blue, silver, yellow with a decal, then blue right under it. So back to the instructions. See this little tab right here? These slot into these little bitty holes on either side of the windows. Problem is, they want you to install the buttresses things first, then install the windows. And there's absolutely no way to do that with the buttresses installed. So I'm going to install the windows first and move on from there. And these fit with 0 problems, guys. I am really impressed by this kit. My popsicle stick with some double-sided tape on it, it has failed me. Guess I don't need that thing anymore. So speaking of the buttresses, it's finally time to install them. From everything I've read, this has been the bane of this kit. And I don't know, guys. They fit for me fairly decently. There was just a little bit of a daylight shining through the bottom of them. But that's okay. Once I get everything assembled, all that will be hidden in shadow, and they will look like they fit. All I know is that is one seamless line, and these things seem to fit. I have to console this stick a little bit since I threw it away earlier, but that's right. That's a good stick. With the windshield in place, we can move on to installing the wipers. Now some of you may be asking, yes, the Photo-etched did come with some Photo-etched wipers, but to me, I don't know, man, they just don't look that good. Not only that, but you got to stab them just right, otherwise you're going to scratch up your windshield. Speaking of which, I went to adjust these and then, oh no, this happened. Yeah, my dog, I don't know how, but she somehow ran down the stairs and then across the tile floor without her toenails clacking on them to sneak up on me. I was just sitting here and then I felt something cold and wet just on my leg. And it was a dog nose. So I got to kind of playing with my dog down here and I just completely forgot to video this next segment here. Basically what I did though, is that the Photo-etched lettering and the emblems here, they're just sticky enough to hold in place. So I got them in place right where I wanted them to be. Then I sprayed some Tamiya clear on this lid here. Then I used this brush and I lopped some of that up and then just painted over the Photo-etched parts. The idea is that capillary action will pull the clear down under and around the part to essentially glue it in place. And I do have to give credit where credit's due. I got that idea from Paul over at the International Scale Modeler. And with the headliner installed, I'm going to do a quick little run around of everything here just to make sure that I didn't miss anything. Because we're almost at the point of no return. I must have been satisfied because I'm going to install the hood now. It's got two little slots that it's got to slide into, but because I have the wiper blades in place, it kind of hangs up a little bit. If you just shake it and get kind of rough with it, eventually it'll just fall into place. Now from there, the hard part is getting it to shut while also aligning and the tabs on the bottom of the body. The hard part is getting it to fall down straight while also hitting those tabs on the bottom that I just mentioned a second ago. If you mess with it enough though, you guys will get it. It only took me about 2 minutes. Yeah, it took some doing, but I finally got it exactly where I want it to be, so I'm going to lock it in place there with some tape temporarily. Then go underside and install this brace just to make it all a little bit more permanent. A little bit more permanent. That's an oxymoron, isn't it? And I didn't know where else to fit this into the sequence of things, so we're going to install the license plate now. Cool. Now we're about to mate the body up to the chassis, so this is your last chance to go in and clean up any hair, fingerprints, dust, spend some time here and make sure you do it right. I'm taking some pride in my build, so I figured I'd start signing them and dating them like all the other modelers do. So that is my signature plus the year 2023. Believe it or not, but that is a 2 instead of an uppercase R. The interior tub fit with just zero problems. It slides over this ledge on the body and then it slots in place on the rear. In fact, if I didn't edit out all the sound, you guys could hear it click into place and it actually locks in. That's not going anywhere. You guys remember this thing from a few videos ago? My apologies, but I had led you guys astray. I thought the intake installed afterwards, but no, it installs now. So we're going to pick up right where we had left off on, what was it, part 3? Yep, 4? Part 3. And that is right after I had painted this in my homemade powder coat. Honestly, there wasn't a lot to do. I just had to paint the airboxes flat black and then the throttle bodies in silver. Now you guys have seen me mask everything off to do the actual airboxes. Next up, I'm going to mask off and we're going to paint the throttle bodies. Alright, so let's talk about this intake here, guys. The Photo-etched kit, it came with some beautiful strips of Ferrari script that goes right in place there. The problem is, since I had done that textured finish, there is not enough surface area for that Photo-etched to stick to. So I went with the kit decals, and again, they wouldn't stick. So I got just them in place where I kind of thought they looked good, and then just covered them in clear. It's just enough to hold them in place, and as long as you don't touch them, well, it looks the part. And it's right about here that we have to remind ourselves that we're working with the Revell kit, and we have to mentally prepare ourselves that this is not going to fit. And I gave a quick glance over to the box just to remind myself that this is a Revell kit and this thing actually fit. Yeah guys, this thing, it actually fit. Well wait, hold on here. Let's check something. No, that's all level. That's level. Yeah, that's level 2. Guys, this actually fit. I have a sneaking suspicion that it only fit because everything installs in 3 separate pieces. Now, it may look like I'm struggling with this, but it's just because it's kind of hard to work through a viewfinder. But no, this thing actually fit too. If you look real close, everything is flush inside the fender wells, and the exhaust tips, they are centered. Guys, this fit. I'm shocked. The Revell kit going together like this. I mean, even the front little air dam lip thing, that's not even held in place with glue. That is just popped into place. Guys, you don't understand. I put it together and I'm now going back to do the voiceover and I'm still in shock. This thing fit. Anywho, speaking of things fitting like a Revell kit, let's move on to these wheels. Now, off camera, I had painted the wheels a gloss black, and with the decals installed, I'd went over the lug nuts with that same titanium silver that I had used earlier. And when it comes to the brakes, the calipers, I had done a base coat with some Citadel Everland yellow. A long time ago, I looked up base coats for yellow and that came highly recommended. So now I'm just going to go over it with some TS16 yellow. This is actually a perfect match for that yellow that Ferrari uses on its badges. Now thanks to that Citadel paint, it takes just one layer to get it up to the right shade. For this next part here, I just got really caught up in a creepypasta that I was listening to and just forgot to turn on the camera. And for the brake rotor itself, I had painted that in a graphite metallic to replicate that carbon ceramic. And for the kind of heat shield, brake dust shield thing, I just went over that in some flat black. And of course, I put on the Brembo by Ferrari decal. But now that you guys are caught up to speed, you're probably thinking, hey, don't you have some really nice wheels from Geronimo Works? Yeah, guys, I did not forget about those. And they're phenomenal wheels, and I love them. The problem is, they are way too wide for this kit. During my test fitting, they stuck out of the wheel well about 2 millimeters, and at this scale, that's about 2 inches that they're sticking outside the wheel wells. So I will be using them on a future project, hopefully, but they're not going to work for this one. Luckily though for me, Revell had actually done a decent job on these wheels. They also done a fairly decent job on the tires. The aspect ratio, they are not too tall. These do not look like four-wheel drive tires. So naturally, with all four wheels and tires installed, we got to do our little sanity check here and make sure it sits flat. And oh no. Ha, I tricked y'all. Yeah, this thing actually sits great. All four tires are touching the ground like they should. Well, I'm installing the mirrors now, guys. You know what that means. We are almost done. So I'm going to do one little check just to make sure they're level with each other. And they look fairly decent to me, so I'm going to peel off this tape that's kind of held the hood closed this whole time. Then I'm going to be calling this thing done. I got just one last thing to do, and that is wipe all my fingerprints off, then get this thing in those photo booths and make it look pretty for y'all. So if you guys made it this far, you know the drill. I'm going to thank you. Thank you so much for watching and sticking out this whole build with me. According to section 4-58 of the YouTube bylaw, I have to ask you to like and subscribe and share and all that good stuff. Have a good night, guys.